Have you ever wanted to know what it took to build a billion-dollar Amazon brand? Yeah, you heard that right. An Amazon brand worth
$100 billion.
Well, in today's episode of Heist Seller Stories, we have an absolutely incredible interview with Stephanie Fox, who was the third employee at Thrasio, the fastest privately held company to profitably reach a $1 billion valuation. And this interview is packed with absolute value, including what it took to grow Thrasio, how they acquire brands and businesses, and probably most importantly, what it takes to be a billion-dollar operator of Amazon brands, filled with nuggets on how you can better build and scale a brand on the Amazon platform. This is an absolute insane interview, one of the best hours you could have to learn the Amazon game. Let's get to it and chat with Stephanie Fox. I just became a partner in my favorite Amazon software, Sellerize. Be sure to check it out. I use it for all of my review automations and review dashboard, my daily, weekly, and monthly profitability analysis. You can swap between different accounts if you've got multiple accounts in international marketplaces. It cuts a financial P&L view, which is awesome. You can get reimbursements automated. Oftentimes Amazon owes you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Automated process to submit tickets for that and make money and recover costs. Smart alerts, if anything bad happens to your listing, it notifies you. If you've got larger products, you can do shipping optimization. It's got tons of URLs. Guys, it rocks. Check it out, sellerize.com/heist for 1 month free. We'll also do regular drawings for anyone that's signed up under the Heist discount code to get a free year free. On to the interview. So I am super excited to have on the show Stephanie Fox. I think that everybody's pretty aware now in the Amazon space on the Thrasio story. I think what people are less aware of is how this meteoric rise took place. So Stephanie is employee number 3, which is pretty stinking cool at Thrasio. So she's seen it all from the grassroots starting of the Thrasio story, building upon the hundreds of millions of dollars raised, the unicorn status, multi-billion-dollar valuation status, and north of $500 million in revenue. So Stephanie, I'm super excited to have you on.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So we're obviously going to dive deep into Amazon stuff, the Thrasio story. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of learnings about how you operate and run Thrasio as the chief operating officer. Seller Stories, though, is also about the pre-story, the origin story as well. So why don't we start off by like way back when, where you grew up, and kind of early stage Stephanie, and then we'll roll throughout your story into Thrasio.
Sure. Love it. I feel like this is the how I built this podcast where the sad music comes in and I can tell the, the trials and tribulations that led to today. But no, I mean, everyone's got a good story. So my background, I was born in London, lived over there for 5 years. Dad was in oil and gas, so nothing too crazy, but lived over there for a bit, then came over to Texas and grew up in a suburb north of Houston, the Woodlands, which I hear you also live.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I lived in the
common.
Woodlands for 14 years, so I've got a little bit of Texas blood in me too, so that's awesome.
Perfect. Small world. So I went to school at the University of Texas in Austin. And while in school, started doing all sorts of things with online marketing. So I was doing affiliate marketing, lead gen, worked for a company, driving traffic to various financial services and all sorts of crazy lead gen stuff going on back then. That company ended up launching our own financial services product. So I was sort of in that world for a while. A good just sort of taste into startup entrepreneurship. I was kind of employee number 2 of that company, and we grew it to 150 employees and exited. I, right before Thrasio, had my own e-commerce company called Bravelets. And so we sold jewelry, donated back to nonprofits. We donated about $3 million in a handful of years to charity, grew that company super fast, bootstrapped it, didn't raise any money. Great experience, but also that's where I, learned a lot of hard knocks of entrepreneurship and also what led me to Carlos and Josh. So Carlos owned a Facebook ad agency who was running all of Bravelet's Facebook ads. We were actually their first client. So we got to know each other well through that process, got to know Josh as well. Josh actually is just a mastermind financial guy and helped negotiate me out of some sticky situations I had with some debt and things I had brought onto the business. And so, had partnered with both of them with Bravelets. And then the idea for Thrasio kind of came about where, we were looking at Bravelets and all these little e-commerce companies that were successful, right? They had gotten to a several $1 million run rate. They were doing well. They had good branding, good products, and but they hit a point where they need either funding or expertise or something to take them to the next level. And they kind of plateau, right? And that was sort of my story. And so the thought was, hey, let's find a bunch of these situations and create an e-commerce roll-up, right? Let's have the Bravelets and the 5 other companies and create this roll-up where we could then have one tech team, one Shopify theme, and have it really a good portfolio that way. That was the original thesis. We then sort of learned about Amazon and we're like, never mind, that idea's out the door. Amazon's the way to go. And it was off to the races from then. So, the first couple deals, Carlos and Josh did the deal and then threw it over the fence to me. And then I ran them. So I just basically took over from the entrepreneurs and would run these businesses doing everything from customer service to working with suppliers in China to optimizing the listings and just kind of, catching the grenades until we built the rest of the team and the structure that we have today.
I love that. I like to use the drinking from a fire hose, but I think I might have to intertwine that catching grenades because that's an awesome one. So interesting. So you go to like UT, which is highly regarded school, especially the discipline that you went in, which was you were in marketing advertising at UT?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Business.
So
marketing.
So like world renowned program there. Very difficult to get into. You got your grad school and then you're doing the corporate thing. Like I'm sure with that kind of a background, the skills that you brought to the table, like you could have done the typical ride the wave up to VP and executive status in the traditional corporate environment. I'm just curious what the switch was for you to do the Bravelets thing. Cause I think I kind of come from a similar background where I was on the traditional corporate path and could have kind of run that out, I think successfully, but there was just something there that nudged me into the entrepreneurial direction. So what was it for you that made you flip to the Bravelets from that traditional path that you could have kind of followed that many other people with successful executive careers could have taken?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I remember, the turning point of leaving school and I was interviewing. On one hand, I had Accenture that I was going to go start working for. And on the other hand, I had this online marketing financial services startup that I was employee number 2 of that I had started working for while I was in college. And I thought, okay, well, which way do I go? Over here was stability, a better salary, a better name, something I could tell my grandparents what I do and they actually understood what the hell I was talking about versus like affiliate marketing. And they're like, what are you doing? Or over here was this path that just felt more exciting and it felt like more opportunity and, more career advancement. And so that's the path that I took. So, I've always loved being part of the beginning of something and growth. That's what's exciting to me. Yeah. And, growth and scaling. And if you come into a big company, it's already big and scaled often. They might still be growing, but it's, 10% year over year. It's boring. Like it's, what's fun is the crazy hockey stick growth. And, Thrasio has been that on steroids. So but just I think the opportunity, the excitement, the ability to make an impact, cool. To call the shots yourself. That's what attracted me to it.
Nice. So it's really cool to hear the story about the Carlos Facebook ad agency. I know that he had that, and that was kind of one of the genesis of Thrasio was this thesis of, hey, we know how to run traffic and we can use this skill set to kind of scale and grow D2C brands. So how did that conversation take place? Because like, was Thrasio even a name when you guys started kind of batting this around? Like, because you were early days. I mean, this is ridiculously early in the stage. So
yeah, this is, I mean, May 2018 was when we made our first acquisition. I'll never forget. It was a kitchen product, a single SKU kitchen product. The seller was based in Georgia. Still keep up with her. It was a great story and learned a lot, but no, I mean, it was, we kind of learned about Amazon and just noticed like there's these entrepreneurs running businesses on Amazon that are way easier to scale and way more profitable than these Shopify businesses. Like with Shopify, you've got, you might have a development team. You certainly have a big customer service team. There's just a lot of different teams that you need to run that business. So and then you're driving all your own traffic. So they're just inherently low margin businesses, and you really have to get scaled to actually make money with that play. Whereas Amazon, we're like, there's just so much demand. You just have to get good products in front of the right search terms and you're good and you're off to the races. And so, yeah, we were just amazed. A lot of those first entrepreneurs we spoke with that were spending 10 hours a week running their business, and they were, 50% profit margins. And, it's also, people hear that and think, oh, this is so easy. Those entrepreneurs spend a lot of time getting their business to that point, right? And there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go in those early years, but they get to a certain scale, and then it was eye-opening.
Yeah, that's cool. So the first acquisition was Amazon, so I know the original thesis was D2C, and then the first acquisition was Amazon. And then at that point you're just like, holy shit, maybe we just do this Amazon thing.
Thesis was D2C, but before it even became Thrasio, it was Amazon. So it was the thesis had shifted. It was, we're going after Amazon FBA. We're going to be laser focused on Amazon FBA. The name Thrasio came about, which was just out of Josh Silverstein's head in like 5 minutes. It was, hey, we need a name for a company. And it was like, Googled, Amazonian warriors, Greek mythology or something, and found THRASIO'S, which means strength. And we're like, great, sounds good. Domain's available. So not too much went into that.
I think it's interesting that you guys kind of made that discovery, frankly, super early on in terms of the Amazon channel advantage. Cause I come from a world where, like a 9-figure brand that has all like retail footprints as well. And I know that, and I think you guys have been able to take advantage of this, frankly, but there's this thought out there that there's a lot of channel risk with Amazon. And obviously there's some nuances to that. And there's some hair on it that you got to kind of be aware of some of the risks that come along with the Amazon channel. But I think the interesting thing for me is like a retailer could boot you out at any point. Like a retailer could just decide, hey, we don't want your line in there anymore. You talk about Shopify D2C brands. Facebook could change their CPMs at any moment in time. So I think that Amazon brands historically in the channel itself has been wildly undervalued and underappreciated for the scale and opportunity that it brings. Mm-hmm. So hat tip to you guys for discovering that, frankly, I think before anybody else did on that. Cause I think you're totally right. It's a special confluence of variables that if you can get comfortable with the warts that come along with it, it's hard to beat. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, there's channel risk anywhere, right? We get that question a lot. I think our bet is that Amazon's not going anywhere. And I don't think it is, right? And to your point, though, that there's channel risk on each one of those channels. And so it's just about knowing that risk and going. And I agree. I mean, I think there are really good businesses on Amazon that have great branding and a great team and great products. And, it's not just this random assortment of products. It really is good brands and good businesses. And Amazon's just the platform that sort of enables that.
Yeah, cool. So let's kind of dive into a little bit more of the behind the curtain stuff for how you think about Amazon, how you think about acquisitions, how you think about running, scaling, and growing brands on Amazon. Maybe in terms of just targets. So a lot of the audience here is going to be Amazon sellers. That's a ton of folks that follow my channel. And they're probably either running 7-figure businesses or want to. And I think most of us have at least an intention to take some money off the table, even if they want to grow additional brands after the fact. So what do you guys look for? I mean, if I'm wanting to sell my business to Thrasio, how do I make it appetizing for you? Or what are some of the criteria that you guys kind of have as part of your thesis for acquiring Amazon brands?
Sure. So, we're not category specific. So we like everything. I would say there's a handful of things we don't like, which would be really trendy things, fast fashion, something that's going to go out of style, or like a cell phone case that you have to come out with a new one every single year. Like, not saying we wouldn't do that deal, but it's just not as appealing to us as something that's more core and stable and not going anywhere, right? A spatula, a frying pan, like something, an umbrella, like you're always going to need one, right? And so that, we don't want a fidget spinner, that kind of thing. So the product itself, we want something that's just good and stable and commodity type product. And then we just want it to be a great quality product. And, we want it to be something with good reviews and a lot of reviews, and that ranks well, right? So we're looking for category leaders. So if you type in, garlic press, we want the garlic press that's, ranked top 5 with strong reviews and strong sales velocity, that we can then just kind of continue growing and take to the next level. And we're also not afraid of something that's sitting on page 5 that we could optimize and get to page 1. Okay. But we don't want the thing that's sitting on page 5 with a 2.5 star review rating that's being propped up. So
got it. So I think one of the things that you guys have done really well is taking brands and optimizing, especially the look and feel, and kind of updating them. So to use like the real estate analogy, like house flipping, like you kind of prefer the house on the block that needs a coat of paint and needs some stuff. At least it seems like that's been a lot of your home runs. Do you look distinctively for brands that maybe aren't fully vetted and fully dialed yet? Or do you prefer more of the polished rocks that you can then just use your scale and systems to take to the next level? Or maybe both. I'm just not curious.
We really like both. I mean, I think in the beginning, we probably were looking for more of what you were saying, of sort of the unpolished rocks that we could really have that quick success story and show, look, we optimized. They only had one image, and now we just did a photo shoot and have images, and we just like did the kind of basic optimizations. But we've been able to take things that are sitting comfortably kind of number one ranked, and then still be able to scale those with, different marketing channels or external traffic or different things, even if the listing itself is already optimized. So I probably personally prefer the ones that are not optimized. I like to come in and just be able to like quick hit, do 10 things and double conversion rate. Like that's just so fun to do. But not afraid of either or.
Cool. What are deal enhancers or deal killers?
Deal enhancers, I guess, if it's a product that we just, growth potential, I guess, would be the biggest deal enhance. So, we have a company that's been spending 1% of their revenue on marketing. We're like, okay, we could probably just crank up marketing and grow it, right? Or you're selling on Amazon US only. Okay, we could launch it Amazon International. We could launch it D2C. We could get it onto Walmart.com. Like there becomes this immediate, we just order inventory and start funneling things to the right place. So I think a lot of sellers think that they need to do all that before selling their business, that, I'll get more value for my business if I've already proven, look, I've got Amazon, but I also have D2C and I also have all these other channels. And I don't think that's the best call. So I would say, sometimes people will do that, and then they have this unprofitable Shopify site, this messy, like international listing, and they've lost the honeymoon period. And you're kind of like, it'd be better to just have a rock solid US only business. And then we know the potential will still give value based on that, versus you having to try to like fumble around with it yourself. And it saves you kind of time and effort. And, people take their eye off the ball of Amazon US sometimes to go try to play with D2C. And if that's not your expertise, like I would say, don't waste the time, stay focused, and then we'll still value you because we still can go do that.
Yeah. I think the other thing that people, I think diversification is important for hedging risk and a lot of other things. But I think that sometimes people feel this, I think it's almost like a social pressure in the Amazon space to like launch a bunch of products. It's like, you know what, if you haven't beaten this one product to death and done everything you can with it, and it's still a winner, like all you're going to do by diverting into 4 other products is divert your attention. So like get your wins in the US marketplace, get your wins with your core products. And then when the time is right, then you scale into the other things. Because as I'm sure you know, like if you've got 4 other ASINs and they're not making any money, you're getting no value for that. Like it doesn't make your business look any prettier by having 4 crappy products and 1 good one. It's going to be valued based on the one. So making sure that you focus before scaling, I think, is super critical. And people get into other channels and stuff way too soon. I think that you could do a ton in the US. You could, get to multi-million dollars easily in the US and keep your eye on that ball before scaling. So I think that's an important point. So in terms of due diligence, I'm just curious, the scale with which you guys bring in brands is a little bit kind of nuts from an outsider looking in. I think I saw a recent thing. You guys are bringing in a brand or 2 a day. So there's the finding them, and I think is one thing. Then there's the vetting them, and then there's the integrating. And I think we'll maybe touch on all those. But what is the mechanism for you guys to determine and kind of bring a brand on board? Like, what are some of the things that you're going to look at and peel behind the curtain before you decide to pull the trigger on a brand?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, Ken Kubek, who's our VP of acquisitions, runs that team. And again, he used to be a team of 1, and now he's got a team and got a team in multiple countries. And so, that's really what we've done, is we've scaled all our teams so that we're able to do more quickly and 1 to 2 deals a day. So, but, Ken's team has looked at 5,000 plus deals to narrow it down to the 100 acquisitions we've done. So they really know what to look for. And I mean, they'll have a conversation with the seller. They'll look at the financials. They'll look at the business. They'll see if it's something we're interested in. Again, if it's like, fashion or something that's just a category we're not interested, or maybe the size of the business isn't exciting to us, or, whatever the criteria is, they'll get to that answer quickly. So I think that's a benefit, is that they'll talk to anyone and they can look at their business, give some feedback, say, we're not interested right now, or we are, or whatever, but give them that information. And then, once an LOI is signed and it moves over to our diligence team, we close 90+% of the deals that we have an LOI on. So at that point, we're committed, and we've had crazy stuff happen. We've had products catch on fire during diligence and be suspended on Amazon, and we still close that deal. So we know that Amazon's crazy. We will, unless it's something completely where we're like, we just can't do this deal. Like it's, I can think of, not even a handful of times when that's happened. I mean, we make deals happen for good companies. And as soon as we have an LOI signed, we close as fast as we can.
Cool. So one of the things I've been thinking a lot about this space, especially the M&A space of Amazon. And again, you guys made it cool. So you've now got like 15 other people that want to do what you do. I always kind of say,
day.
Yeah, exactly.
15 new people per day.
So I always say, like, it's interesting. You don't know until you know, with Amazon. And I think that all the sellers that have been in the trenches can attest to this. I call it an Amazon degree. I think it takes at least a year to get, but like you could come from financial sophistication and investment bank. You could come from being an serial entrepreneur before, but until you've run an Amazon channel centric brand, a kind of digitally centric brand in the space, you don't really know until you go through the trenches. Like till you submitted the tickets, till you've had the listing suppressed, till you've like worked shipments, till you've done stuff with China, till you've had boats, like containers go into the water. Like there's just so many things that I think happen, and it's just a school of hard knocks. There's no way to do it other than to go through it. And so I do think that there's a rude awakening for a lot of these folks as they get into this space, coming from, hey, we allocate capital and we can kind of raise money, and we've worked for investment banks, and we're just going to come in here and it makes a ton of sense. We'll scale and do what Thrasio does. So I think they're in for a rude awakening. I do think that one of the potential rude awakenings for Thrasio that I feel might happen is you now have these, there's 10 plus folks with over $100 million raised now. They're not stupid. They need to get their Amazon degrees. So they're going to have to go through that process, but they've got to now deploy that capital that they've raised. You don't give somebody $100 million and expect you to be sitting on it and doing a deal a quarter. Like you got to be doing deals. You got to be doing big deals. I think that your traditional broker market, the assets aren't fantastic. So those are going to get bidded on pretty heavily, but they're going to have to figure out a way to kind of bring deal flow. But I anticipate that there's going to be valuations that you guys are going to have to pay significantly more than you have when no one really knew about this space. So the runway that you guys had in those 2 years where you could get away with, say, a 2x valuation may not happen in the future. I mean, I'm looking at a crystal ball. I don't know, but how do you guys think about that, in the sense that, hey, we might have to pay 1x, 1.5x, maybe 2 years out, 2x what we have historically paid? Does that bust the mechanics of what you guys have done to scale to this point? And just kind of thoughts on that, because I think the space is going to be ripe for people wanting to buy Amazon brands, and especially the good assets are few and far between now. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, great question. And, I think you're spot on with your analysis. So I think, yes, this is definitely looks easier from the outside than it is, right? And
Yeah,
I think
totally.
any Amazon seller on here is, when they get their first adult flag and their product's not showing up in search, and they're like, what do I do? What happened? Or, any of the pesticide, whatever, right? You're dealing with your suspensions on your Saturday morning. Like, this is just the world of Amazon that we've learned, and that we have teams in place to handle and just navigate that crazy system. So yes, I think operating these businesses is the hard part. Raising money is the easier part, which is, and so you've seen that. As far as multiples, I mean, I think there already has been a little bit of a change and an increase, and that's fine. That's just sort of how it goes. I mean, I would say for us, we've shifted where we're really looking at and acquiring larger deals. If you're a brand new acquirer, you probably don't want to buy something that's, 5 million in EBITDA, because if you mess that one up, that's all your money, right? So you might want to instead buy 5 that are $1 million in EBITDA each, and then you have a little more room if 4 take off and 1 crashes, right? So we're looking at larger deals, but we're also still buying small deals and single ASIN deals, and I mean we're doing it all. I think we definitely, we don't like to refer to ourselves as an acquirer or a roll up either. We're operators, and so we really look at the business, we really understand the business and the potential, and we'll pay what we think that business is worth and what market is based on how much we can grow it. So, we've had tremendous success with businesses at all ranges and being able to grow them. And so, our pipeline's never been more full. Like we're cranking, so we feel good, but some healthy competition is always a good thing.
Yeah,
I think
cool.
Keep everyone on their toes.
Yeah, and I think there's still a ton of meat on the bone. I mean, I still think even in the next couple of years, they're going to be wildly undervalued. I don't think that people are going to fully realize the value of these assets until the world tremendously shifts. I think we've seen a lot of that happen over the last year, but there's a lot more coming. So, but yeah, I was just curious for your take on that. So let's shift gears. So you've obviously acquired a ton of brands, 100 plus. I think last year the last public figure was like north of 500 million in EBITDA, which is a healthy number. Let's talk about the conveyor belt. So I've heard the conveyor belt before, which is effectively the system and process and chain of events that you guys take an asset that you acquire and run it through, Thrasio secret sauce, and coming out the other end, ideally a much healthier asset that's growing on a trajectory that it wasn't before. That's how you realize the acquisition case and kind of make your money. So walk me through the conveyor belt. I'm just curious what the conveyor belt is, what you think are some of the key things that you do at those that us as Amazon sellers could also take a look at our business and maybe run our own conveyor belt through the brands that we operate.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, the conveyor belt is essentially just, we used to call it migration. And then we were like, well, it's sort of migration, but then it's this phase after, and it's sort of this phase before. And so we're like, it's really just sort of this conveyor belt that starts from LOI till, call it 90 days after acquisition. Okay. And so, part of it is just taking over the business, right? So it's the very tactical, like, let's take over the Amazon seller account and transfer the assets and the trademark, et cetera, and truly kind of migrate that business after we acquire it. Then there's the value add optimization. We on average grow every business we acquire by 30% within the first 2 months. And that is from this sort of steps of best practices. And so, yeah, if you're an Amazon seller, I mean, there's a lot of low hanging fruit stuff that you can do. And the thing is, most sellers know about this stuff. It's not rocket science. It's the actual finding the time to do it, right? Yep. That's always the struggle as an entrepreneur. You're like, I only have so many hours in the day. It's only me, or it's me and a small team. And like, yes, I'd love to do all these things. I don't have the time or the capital or whatever. So, inventory forecasting is a big one, just making sure we have a lot of inventory coming in so that we can really dial up marketing and do different things. Spending more on marketing. A lot of sellers we see are not spending enough. So kind of cranking that up smartly where we can, and launching other types of campaigns. So, DSP or sponsored brand video, or even external from Google, like those are all different traffic sources that often the old seller maybe was only doing PPC. So our marketing team has 8 divisions that can go kind of crazy with all those different channels. And then the listing optimization itself. So things as simple as just, do you have, the full amount of images and a video that you can have? Do you have enhanced brand content? Do you have on-page promotions? Do you have MSRP pricing striked out? Do you have a bestseller badge? And if not, could you get one by potentially shifting categories or, pushing sales a certain way? So just like I said, nothing that's truly rocket science, but it's just going through every ASIN, seeing what its full potential could be, and then prioritizing based on sort of ease of impact and execution. What are the things you can knock out? And I bet, even the overwhelmed entrepreneur that feels like they don't have any time to do anything, I bet if you sat down and looked at your listing, you could find 3 things that you could do to improve it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, it's no surprise we want to hear that there's some hack or whatever else, but it really is back to fundamentals and the blocking and tackling and doing the things that add value, and just doing them consistently and putting it all together and piecing it together. And that's that. And it does special things when magic happens, when those things come together. So are there any in that conveyor belt? I've been really high on leverage here the last 6 months. And like this YouTube channel is an example. Like I post one video and then it will do things for years for me. Right. In Amazon business, you put a lot of time into finding a product to launch, you launch it. It's a lot of work up front, but then there's times where you maybe do an hour a week on that product for 6 months, unless something hairy happens or whatever else. So like really activities that you can do once that pay dividends in perpetuity, and those high leverage activities. Is there any one or handful of activities that you see in the conveyor belt that are like, this is like crazy high leverage? We do this and this just pays itself off, and well into the months and years ahead when we enact this thing, it just kind of sets things in motion. Is there any of those high leverage things that you can think of on the conveyor belt that?
Yeah, I mean, I would look at I think the people focus on the revenue side and the sales side because that's the fun side. And I think the expenses side of the house is actually a place where there's a lot of those opportunities. So,
Cool.
looking at your FBA size tier and saying, am I in the box that costs $3.63 to ship? And if I just shaved it down by a half an inch, I could drop down a tier to the $2.62, whatever. I'm not maybe getting the numbers perfect, but drop a tier. And then all of a sudden, you're saving significant money on every single shipment. And then that money could then be applied to marketing and it just becomes this flywheel. So I think looking at where can I save cost, we see a lot of sellers that still have things like inbound placement services turned on. So that's 30 cents a unit that you're paying Amazon just to place your goods that you don't have to spend, or having Amazon put the barcode on your product. That's 20 cents a unit that you don't have to spend, have your supplier in China do it. So again, I think if you're a 7-figure Amazon seller, you're probably already doing all these things, but there may be 1 or 2 of those in there that 20 cents here, 30 cents here, 60 cents there per unit on a $10, $15 product can be crazy to margin. So those are the things that, you do once and then it pays dividends for a long time.
Awesome. Love it. International. So I'm actually just spilling in. Again, I kind of focus exclusively on the US. I'm now spilling into Canada, UK, and some of the international stuff. I think a lot of people are starting to, especially if you've got a 7-figure plus business, that's kind of one of the rocks you start looking at is like, hey, let's get this thing set up internationally and kind of deploying some of these ASINs and scaling horizontally versus kind of adding new products or other things. How do you guys think about international and what kind of element of the growth story do you think that international plays for Amazon brands here over the next couple of years?
I think international is huge. So I think, a year ago, I might have said differently, but 6 months or 8 months or whenever Amazon started aggregating all the reviews across all the marketplaces, it became a totally different game. So you can launch your US product in the UK and out of the gate have 5,000 reviews and a 4.5-star rating. Like that's crazy. And so then it just becomes getting sales velocity. It doesn't become a getting reviews play. And it's just a lot easier. So I think, international can be tough with compliance and VAT and the finance, the legal. It can be a little scary, but there's great consultants out there. So I would say like offload, off the piece of the business that's kind of confusing or hard, focus on growing. But I think it's huge. And you name the big ones. I mean, it's Canada, UK, and Germany. I would put the focus on first and then expand into the other ones next.
Okay. What do you think the next big one's going to be in terms of outside the big 4? Like the emerging one that you guys are seeing a lot of hyper growth in and just ease of entry and other things.
Yeah, I mean, we just hired a head of Japan.
Nice. I saw that on the website.
Yeah, so we're betting on Japan, but not only for Amazon, for other marketplaces too. I think India will be big. I think those are probably the next 2.
Okay, awesome. Do you guys have a particular acquisition strategy around international that you're deploying? I know that there's some of these Thrasio wannabes that are actually maybe that's kind of a rude way to say it, but
Thrasio, it's okay. Hey, it's a compliment.
I'm sure you don't care.
The Uber, whoever.
Yeah, but the that are focused on international markets. What are your thoughts on acquisitions internationally? Do you think that where the US was 2 years ago in terms of acquisition environment?
I don't know. I mean, we've been acquiring internationally this whole time, so I think it's gotten some more splash lately. But out of our 100+ acquisitions, I feel like 50% probably are non-US sellers. So we've bought from a bunch of UK businesses, Australia, Romania, all over the place. So, we've always acquired those businesses. We're putting a stake in Germany. So we've got, I think, 6 German businesses under LOI right now. We closed a big one. We're building an office over there. So I think, there's just good Amazon sellers everywhere. I'm sure people listening to your YouTube channel are all over the place. So, I mean, international it's one big market to me.
Cool. Yeah. Even though Australia is not the best market from an Amazon selling standpoint, I think it's like 30% of my viewers are from Australia. So there's a lot of like entrepreneurs from Australia.
Wow.
So
we've bought a few deals from there for sure. Great sellers. I mean,
Totally. So how about one thesis that I haven't seen actually deployed, but it makes me kind of wonder. So I spend a lot of time in China. Shenzhen, Dongguan area is kind of where I spend a decent amount of time. Ton of Amazon sellers there. Obviously, a lot of Chinese sellers actually fit that kind of thesis that you talked about at the outset in terms of category leadership and lots of reviews and probably could use some paint on the house to make it prettier, etc. have you guys thought about or evaluated opportunities from Chinese sellers where you're like, hey, there's these guys in Shenzhen that are doing 20 million a year, super complex structure in terms of employees and all this other stuff, but they have the assets and the ASINs that you guys might otherwise go after. So have you guys tapped into buying from Chinese sellers at all yet?
Yes, we have. We actually just hired our head of China who's over there right now. So yes, I think you nailed it. There's great businesses over there. I think there's a mix of good and bad businesses everywhere. There's good and bad Chinese sellers. There's good and bad US sellers. There's good and bad UK sellers. But there's some really great businesses in China, and we're excited to expand there. I think it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. Well, cool. And you got 2 new places to visit, like Japan, go ski some powder in Japan, and then go to Hong Kong and live life in Hong Kong. So you guys have new trips to do.
I've spent a good amount of time in Guangzhou.
Nice.
I've done, the Canton Fair and all the big jewelry shows I used to do with Bravelets. And I actually traveled around China with my supplier one summer. So I feel like I've seen a bit of China, but I've never spent any time in Japan. So definitely want to get over there.
Yeah, that's sweet. Okay, cool. Well, let's kind of talk org structure, and then there's a couple kind of pointing questions I had about how you guys kind of run systems and stuff. But so org structure, I honestly got a little bit of a headache scrolling through your hiring page, and I don't know who your VP of HR is, but I think we should all send them a case of beer because an incredible list of people that you're hiring for. And I'm sure that you're one of the fulcrums of kind of org design and kind of thinking about how the business needs to plug gaps as you scale and kind of add businesses to the portfolio. Just give me a high level overview of maybe how you guys operate and how you're thinking about operating. Because obviously running even a $10 million Amazon business is different than running a $500+ million EBITDA business with, hundreds of brands, and just the scale of it is frankly a little daunting to me. So what's your org structure, and how do you guys think about your org?
I think there's a really interesting podcast. I'm trying to remember. I'll send it to you after if I remember the exact one, but it was on fractal org design. And I thought it was I listened to that. Thought it was really interesting, but it was, this huge organization. It was like, if you zoom in, it's just these little pods of 8 people. And then you zoom out and it becomes this huge organization. And that's kind of the framework in my mind that works really well, right? That when you're a small business and you can have the person that's in charge of the P&L, which for us is the brand manager, sitting next to the person who's in charge of PPC, sitting next to the person who's in charge of creative and SEO and supply chain. If you can have 8 people all sitting around a table talking about a brand performance, that works really well. And so it's, how do you make sure you do that when your company becomes 1,000 employees, and that it doesn't become these siloed, okay, marketing's over here and they never talk to brand management who's over here, or SEO who's over there. So what we've tried to do is kind of create those cross-functional pods where every brand has sort of their assigned people, and that they can all get together and strategically think. So yeah, that's kind of the thesis. We have brand managers who are the hub of the wheel, and then we have all our different centers of excellence. So we have our marketing team, our SEO team, our supply chain team, our legal team, and that enables us to hire experts in each of those domains. And then the brand manager is ultimately responsible for the P&L of the brand and for growing that brand, but they're not doing it alone. And we're all one team that kind of wins and loses together.
So I can maybe conceptualize this a little bit. So you've got brand managers, and I'm assuming that they get a set amount of brands that they're responsible for. Is that the idea?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's take a Casey who does SEO for the organization. So he's the functional leader for that group. I'm assuming shaping strategy. What do we need to do next? Who do we need to hire? How do we do Google SEO, higher level strategic stuff? Does he then have, call it analyst level SEO folks that only have a cluster of brands that they do? Or is it a functional SEO does SEO for everything across?
So clusters, but I would say, under Casey's world, we've got SEO for Amazon listings. We've got SEO for Amazon international listings. We've got keyword research people. We've got SEO strategists. We've got, people. He probably has 8 different groups that all have their own sort of functions. And then within those groups, they all have their kind of set of brands that they're working on. But yes, so it's, I think one of the things we try to do too is that the functional, the heads, so Casey, head of SEO, still rolls up his sleeves and will look at an ASIN and kind of work together with the brand manager too. So we try to make sure we all stay in the business and that we stay sharp on Amazon and we're not just sort of executives that don't know anything.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. No, I think that's the best of both worlds. I mean, you can't purely solve it functionally, but you also need your utility players that can do it all and kind of understand the brands. And I think it's important to keep that. So I think that's probably one of the most interesting things about Thrasio for me is, everybody talks about economies of scale. That's pretty easy to understand. And just the number of reps and the data that you guys get. I mean, that just empowers itself and it snowballs. But managing that complexity and keeping what made Thrasio really good in 2018, 2019, 2020, making that DNA stick in 2025 when you've got 500 brands, it's a complex problem to solve. And a lot of that is a people org problem to solve. So kudos to you guys. I'll definitely dig into that and I'll post a link down below in terms of that podcast. But that's one of the things I think I'm really interested to see how you guys do that. So I'm partner in a software company called THRASIO'S. So kind of don't come from a software world, but I think the data element of Amazon is frankly what makes it super, super exciting and fun. And it's just, again, what a time to be alive. Just like the amount of information that we get to make business decisions, both before we deploy a product and then run our actual business. And then the API tie-ins and some of the things that you can do to build systems is just incredibly exciting. I've also noticed you guys have a decent amount of tech getting built and engineers getting built. How do you guys think about data technology? Do you guys build your own software platforms? Or are you looking to do that? Just curious, because obviously I think data and tech becomes a pretty massive part of any large business. But when you are basically a almost purely data-driven business, that becomes incredibly important at scale. So just curious how you guys think about the tech side of things.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a huge part of the business. I think we try to, really reinforce with everyone that we need to be making data-driven decisions and test and split test and test again and make our decisions based on what the data is saying, not just your gut. And so, getting that information in the hands of brand managers and marketing and SEO and all the teams is extremely important. So, I mean, I would say our strategy is a mix of kind of build and buy. So there's good softwares out there. THRASIO'S is a great software. I'm very familiar with it. And, I think a lot of that stuff we look at and use the off-the-shelf tools. And then we, also have our own sort of proprietary custom built stuff and we kind of layer the two in. But, we're not going to go build our own keyword tracker if we can use Viral Launch, Helium 10, Jungle Scout, and but we might layer something on top of it that's helpful, or we might look at something else. So I'm a big, buy versus build kind of fan, because I think you can spend a lot of time building technology, and we're not trying to be a technology company. We're, but it is so important. So it's a tug of war, but I think a healthy mix of build and buy.
Nice. So, kind of good lead into this, which is kind of a vendor oriented question. I'm just kind of curious, because again, I think one of the benefits that you guys have of having many brands, testing many things, and seeing a lot of different kind of sides of the coin that maybe us as solo entrepreneurs maybe test a couple of them, and then we just settle for the one that we know how to use because we don't want to worry about it. On the operational side specifically, I'm really curious how you guys do demand planning, because I come from a world where I used to buy electricity companies.
Oh, cool.
And that was, a key part of it for me was buy a lot of these things, and it was an OpEx optimization. Like, we don't need 80 people because we have the systems and teams to do that. So it was OpEx optimization, and then some other operational savings. I think Amazon businesses and brands are really lean on OpEx. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of the owner and the 2 VAs that they have. Like, there's not a whole lot of meat on the bone to save there. But I think a lot of people stock out a ton, and there's so much money on the table for that. You talked about inventory planning. Some of that's just because they maybe don't have the systems or time to do it effectively. Some of it's a working capital constraint where you just can't go buy 7 months worth of inventory because it would make it impossible for you to kind of pull it off. But from a demand planning standpoint, I'm really, really curious, especially being the COO of Thrasio. How do you guys think about demand planning from both a structure and strategy standpoint, and then the tools and software and other things that you may use to make it more intelligent?
Yeah, good question. It's probably the most important thing that we do, because as you know, you have to have inventory or nothing else works. And so we have a whole team of people, kind of financial analysts that come from that world. So our SP&A team is strategy, planning, and analysis. And so they come in and they run the whole program of demand planning, and it's a huge process. So we look at historicals, we look at seasonality, we look at what happened historically so that, if there was a stock out or a suspension, you're not thinking it was seasonality, right? That can sometimes skew things. And then we look at the opportunity. And so we're looking at the ASIN and where it is and where we think we can get it. So this one's currently sitting at a, BSR of whatever, or it's in the middle of page one. We think we can get it to the top of page one. When we do that, we think it will be this many units sold per month. And then we demand plan that way. So, it's a kind of planning the opportunity, ordering inventory for the opportunity, which if you're only looking at historicals might feel crazy. And I have those conversations all the time with CNA where they're like, wait, you're forecasting to like 6x this business. Like we thought we put in like a, aggressive 50% growth rate. And I was like, no, but if you look at the data, this ASIN is at the bottom of page one. If we can just get it top 5, here's what we'll sell, right? And so the data is out there. Again, none of these tools are perfect, but it's really just sitting down, taking the time, coming up with your plan for that ASIN, and then betting on yourself, ordering enough inventory. And then when the inventory hits, having your plan for how you're going to increase keyword rank and conversion rate and drive that traffic.
Yeah, it's funny. I talked about it in Q4, and I think one thing that people don't realize when they see the flashy screenshots of, somebody that did $1 million or a month or whatever else is, you need to like gut up and like, it's not fun ordering 300 grand worth of inventory. Like when the data tells you what it is and you're like pretty confident, but like that's part of, I think, this game that just, if you can do it, and you kind of got to eat glass for breakfast sometimes to kind of stomach it, but it's cool. So what software do you guys use for that demand planning? Cause I think I haven't settled on one that I've it's a big question I get from a lot of other sellers as they graduate, like what system and
I wish I could tell you one. It's in-house. So it's, and I've tested a few of them, especially for us with multiple accounts and then multiple marketplaces and multiple channels. We really have to forecast this item. How much will it sell on Walmart, on D2C, on Amazon US, on Amazon, and finding that in a tool just hasn't worked. So we have our own tech that helps. It's a lot of spreadsheets too. And then just looking, you're manually graphing things.
That's how I'm doing it now too. So I guess we're kind of stuck there.
But, I wish I could tell you one. If you find one, let me know.
We got like another 5-10 minutes where maybe we'll kind of start wrapping this up and maybe talk about the future a little bit. So predictions for Thrasio, for Amazon, for anything that you kind of foresee in the year or two ahead. I'm just kind of curious with somebody really, frankly, at the tip of the spear in terms of leadership in the Amazon space. Really curious to hear your thoughts on what you think's next.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just such an exciting time. I think, new employees that join the company and they're employee number 500 or whatever. And I'm like, man, you must feel like you're like getting in late, right? But you're not, because we have so much opportunity ahead of us. And I feel that's the way for all Amazon sellers, right? That it's really, we're just sort of, it's just only up from here, because even our optimized listing, like we have one product that did 4 million in revenue in 2019 and 24 million last year. And it wasn't even a COVID bump product. It was like a pretty steady growth product. And that was only Amazon US. That's without even getting into D2C or international or all these other channels yet, right? And we're still finding ways to grow that product even more on Amazon. So it's just, no matter what growth you've had, there's just still so much more upside ahead. And that's what's so exciting. I mean, and where I think Amazon's going is, you really just, I think, focusing on what you said earlier, the hard stuff and having a good business. I think the hacks are going away and will continue to go away. So I think most Amazon sellers know that you can't just hack your way to ranking your product number one. It's not sustainable. You can't hack your way to a 5-star rating. Like, Amazon, anywhere that you feel like there's a loophole, like it's going to go away. Amazon's going to crack down on it. If you think, oh man, I really should go get this whatever certification from my supplier or for this product, but I haven't been because I haven't been caught yet, like go do it, because you will. And so I think just focusing on having a really good business, focusing on having good products and good organic reviews is the name of the game. And then the rest will take care of itself. And I think the players who aren't doing that are going to disappear. And so I think Amazon as an ecosystem is just going to get better and better for consumers, better brands, better products, better quality. Which will be good for all of us too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So my last question, I think again, a testament to you is, I want to talk about female leadership in the Amazon space because I think like we've seen it in tech before, software worlds, we've seen it in engineering, and this is a little bit anecdotal, a little bit database, but I see a little bit too. Like my audience, YouTube gives you stats on who sees your channel, and I think it's something like I want to say it's like 83% or 84% male, and like the inverse obviously female. I think that if you look at the voices and the faces of the space, I think it probably tips in that 70-30 range. I think there's emerged some really good female agency owners and kind of female leaders and kind of public speakers in the space. But it feels to me like there's a gap there, and I don't know what it is or what creates it. I'm just curious, as somebody who literally has led one of the biggest Amazon stories and business stories of all times as a female executive, tip of the spear, leading the charge. What do you think may be going on there? Maybe it's not going on. And what do you think we could do to bring more females into the fold of Amazon entrepreneurship and making this more of a 50-50 story versus a 70-30 story?
Yeah, I mean, great question. And I think you're spot on with the numbers. I mean, I'm in several Facebook groups of Amazon sellers, and that's definitely the by far minority. But, that said, there's some just badass female entrepreneurs 100%. In this space too. So it's, you've got it all. I think that you really see this in entrepreneurship as a whole. Yeah. I was in a entrepreneurs organization in Austin for many years, and it was the same story. There was like 10 females and 93 males in that whole organization, and they were trying to get more females. So, I don't know if it's risk tolerance or what it is, but it's just not. I think it's overall, how do we get more females into entrepreneurship? And I think there's things out there, but I definitely, would love to be a part of it. So if there's anything that you or your group wants to do, or, we at Thrasio, we definitely, try to, mentor and all of that too. And any of the women in senior leadership, try to mentor other people in the company and help. But yeah, always open to ideas and what we can do.
Well, kudos to you for breaking ground. I think it starts with having an example of that taking place, and the fact that you are, again, kind of leading one of the most compelling business stories in U.S. history. Kind of tip of the spear is exciting for me to see, and it's really fun to chat with you. So, Stephanie, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. As kind of like business geek, I'm really compelled by the Thrasio story, and being able to kind of take it a couple layers below the surface and understand some of the inner workings and thoughts from people that are basically making it happen and building it was valuable for me. And I think that this interview will be really compelling and valuable for people in the audience too. And I think one of the cool things about Amazon for me, I mean, you got to be coy with brands, and there's a little bit of a weird competitive thing there, but really it's not a zero-sum game. The chances of us all competing against each other or clashing heads is not traditional like it is in the normal business world. Like I really do think that all of the ships will rise with the tide, and you being able to open up the kimono a little bit and sharing some of the stories of Thrasio and kind of what makes you guys tick makes us better. I think hopefully sellers will make you better, obviously help grow your business. So thanks for contributing to that story. Being part of the Heist community was super fun, and really enjoyed it. So thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. And totally agreed. We want to, we love the space, and we're business and e-commerce geeks too. So we're happy to share and happy to help and have conversations with entrepreneurs anytime. So cool.
And if you guys don't already, follow Thrasio's got a really fantastic podcast. They also post videos on YouTube. I'll actually be on it here in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
So if you want to return the favor and come up with any hard questions for me, tell your colleagues and we can kind of return the favor. But anything else you want me to share in terms of where to reach you, where to find Thrasio?
No, I mean, it's, if you're looking to sell your business, it's Ken at Thrasio. And if you want to reach out to me for anything, it's Stephanie at Thrasio. So
awesome.
Thanks for having us on.
Cool. Really appreciate it. Thanks. So how good was that? Look, guys, we do this every single month with Heist seller stories, in addition to dropping weekly value bombs on Amazon FBA specific content. So if this is your first time here, smash that like button or whatever the other like teenage YouTubers tell you to do. Be along for the ride, be along for the Heist journey, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.